Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're just going to give a few seconds for other people to join us. And as you know, we stream this event live on Facebook, and that is on right now. So if you'd like to share that with other people that would like to hear about this program, feel free to do that. We'll be emailing you the link after this after the event is over. We have, at this point, about 53 people signed up and logged in. So thank you for joining us again. I'm going to go ahead and get started with some introductions. But before that, welcome again. We are so thrilled to have you join us for, this is going to be the last of our 2021 virtual events. As you know, we began hosting these events back in February of this year to celebrate the Friends of the Texas Historical Commission's 25th anniversary. And through these events, we have many new friends and have been able to stay in touch with old friends, which has been wonderful. We are so happy about how popular these events have been that we have planned to make this, this program a regular part of our offering to our friends and supporters across the state and beyond. And we will begin our 2022 series of events in February after taking a break through the holidays and through January so that we can get our slate of events lined up for 2022. And our hope is that through these events, you will continue to get to know more about us, the Friends of the THC, and our mission to support the Texas Historical Commission in its preservation efforts across the state. Many of you have chosen to support us through these events, and we are so very grateful for your support. And we hope that you will continue to join us and enjoy the content we share next year as well. I also wanted to especially welcome our THC commissioners and Friends board members who have joined us today, as well as several of our THC colleagues. Thank you all for taking time to join us this evening. I also wanted to introduce our team. First, Katie Kukerbaum. Katie, if you can wave your hand, who is the brains behind these events. She has identified and set up each of these events over the last year and is going to continue doing that into next year as well. Our new team member, Yega Ramazani, who is the behind-the-scenes person at the Friends of the THC, who works with us on everything from buying paper and pens to setting up events to processing your gifts that you send over to us. So thank you, Yega, for all that you do. And of course, Hope Baron, who is our social media expert, who's been reaching out to everyone, all of you and others as well, via Facebook at THC Friends, and on Instagram and Twitter at friends_THC. If you are on social media, please follow us on these platforms. We're also broadcasting live, as I mentioned, on Facebook right now, and we'll share that link in a follow-up email. Before we get started, I also wanted to let you know that we will be sending information about our first 2022 virtual event soon. Please keep an eye out for our email and do register to attend. We promise it will be fun. And registration, as always, will be open at www.thcfriends.org. Housekeeping items before I introduce our speaker today. We would really appreciate it if you can keep your microphones on mute and your cameras on. Also, if you would, once I introduce our speaker and once she starts her presentation, if you would switch your viewing option to speaker view, you will be able to better view her presentation and her talk as well. And if you all are wondering how to do that, if you hover on the right side of the top right corner of your Zoom screen, you'll see a little button that says view. If you click on that, it gives you the option of speaker view. We have a planned Q&A for the end. So if you'd like to hold your question till then, that's wonderful. Otherwise, feel free to drop your questions into the chat box. Katie and I will keep an eye on the chat box, and we'll make sure that we share your questions with Susan at the end of her presentation. So with that, it is now my privilege to introduce today's event and our presenter, Susan Tietz. As you may know, the Friends of the THC's motto is preserving the real places and real stories of Texas. And so storytelling is a key part of the work of historic preservation. And our presenter today, Susan, is not only a master of the art, but is hugely passionate, as all of our colleagues at THC are, about the presentation or preservation of Texas's crown jewels, our historic courthouses. Susan earned her master's degree in architecture and a certificate of historic preservation from Texas A&M University in 1998 and acquired her architecture license in 2017. While getting her graduate degree, she spent several months traveling in Southeast Asia, researching the efficient use of space in Indonesia and India as the 1997 Edward J. Romanique Traveling Fellow. And Susan, I did not know that, so we need to catch up about your trip to India. Afterwards, she acted as a graduate teaching assistant at the Santa Chiara Study Center for Architecture and Art in Castiglione Fiorentino in Italy. After several years in the private sector, Susan joined the Texas Historical Commission in the spring of 2002 as an architectural reviewer for the nationally renowned and award-winning Texas Historic Courthouse Preservation Program, the THCPP. She managed the full restoration of over 20 historic county courthouses across the state, served as the program's assistant director from January 2013, and then became the coordinator of one of the nation's most important preservation grant programs, the Courthouse Preservation Program, in 2020. So again, please make sure you're viewing in speaker view. And Susan, thank you so much for taking time to be with us this evening and for sharing your expertise and your knowledge, and it is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I hope I'm going to be able to keep this within the 45-minute time range. So let's get started. Okay, is everybody able to see that now? Okay, great. Okay. Not forwarding. Okay. Well, as most of you know, Texas has 254 counties, but some of the counties have more than one historic courthouse. So we actually have 277 historic courthouses in the state of Texas, and that number is always going up as courthouses turn 50 years old. Between 1950 and 1972, we sadly lost many courthouses. We've always lost many courthouses in the past to fire, but beginning in the 50s, there were many courthouses that were demolished purely just because they wanted to change the style of their courthouse. So I'm just going to go through quickly some of the ones that we lost between 1950 and 1972. Smith County, sadly, you can see here in the foreground the 1911 courthouse being demolished, and in the background, that is the 1955 courthouse that now stands today. Now that courthouse, the 1955 courthouse in Tyler, is now also threatened with demolition. Here's some others: Calhoun County, Coke County, Floyd County, all demolished in the 50s. Sadly, Galveston counties demolished, even though it's one of the most, historic communities in the state. Madison County, that courthouse burned. Martin County Courthouse, you're not going to believe what they replaced that with. Here's what they chose to build after demolishing that beautiful building. Nacogdoches County Courthouse was demolished in 1958 to build this. And then sadly, right here in Austin, the Travis County Courthouse was demolished in 1964 to make way for a parking lot. And it still is a parking lot to this day. So in 1971, the Texas Legislature could see that we were losing a lot of our historic county courthouses. And so they passed this law that essentially says that a county cannot alter, demolish, sell, their courthouse without contacting the Texas Historical Commission and notifying us 180 days prior to doing so. And what that really does is it doesn't give us a whole lot of control over whether or not a building is eventually demolished, but it does give time for community to organize and potentially save a building that is threatened with demolition. So since that law was enacted, we've only lost 2 courthouses, and that is the Midland County Courthouse, which was demolished in 2015, and the Aransas County Courthouse, which was demolished following Hurricane Harvey. It sustained very this 1885 courthouse was demolished in order to build, this 1956 courthouse, which we also lost following Hurricane Harvey. We also have some courthouses currently at risk of demolition, and I just wanted to mention in particular the Nueces County Courthouse in Corpus Christi. It's an absolutely stunning building, and it is currently threatened with demolition. And the Hidalgo County Courthouse, which I don't have here, 1956 courthouse is also essentially it's on its way to being demolished. But that law really has helped certainly slow down the demolition of courthouses. And so this is now the state currently of the Nueces County Courthouse. It's in terrible disrepair, but it's not beyond, restoration. So our staff is working very, very hard to try to get this building saved. So these are some of the conditions that were seen in the 1990s prior to the courthouse program being established. This was actually a pretty standard condition of many of our historic courthouses across the state. And then in 1993, the Hill County Courthouse burned on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. And that was a real wake-up call to our legislature, our then governor, and obviously historians and preservationists across the state. And following that, people started getting much more concerned about the courthouses because this was an electrical fire, essentially. And we have had several electrical fires since then, including the Newton County Courthouse that also was gutted and burned. The Hill County Courthouse was rebuilt. The community raised a lot of money to rebuild the courthouse, including a big Willie Nelson concert. And the Newton County Courthouse, the Texas Historical Commission helped fund the reconstruction of that building. In 1998, the courthouses were the first collection of buildings ever put on the National Trust's 11 Most Endangered Properties. And so that also highlighted nationally the risk that these buildings were in. And finally, in 1999, then Governor George W. Bush and our current chairman, actually, John Now, was our chairman at that time. Together, they formed the courthouse program that we now have today. And we have had 11 rounds of funding, and we've given out over $320 million in grants to date. We currently have 135 participating counties. We've awarded 103 counties grants to either restore their buildings, address emergency issues, or create plans and specifications that they can use to restore their courthouse in the future. So far, we've funded the full restoration of 73 courthouses. And strangely, the same number, we also have 73 counties that are still waiting for full restoration funding. Some of them have received emergency funding or planning grants, and some of them have received no money at all. We are very fortunate that the 87th 2021 legislature appropriated $25 million for the program. And so we will be holding around 12 grant cycle And those applications are due in May. The applications will be available on the website in early 2022, and those awards will be made in July. But you can just see from the state, we've got a really great geographic distribution of our projects, which we've been really lucky to have all parts of this, all counties have been, I shouldn't say that. We just have had counties from all over the state that are really interested in our program, including urban counties, rural counties. So now I'm going to go through all of our full restoration grant projects, some before and afters, and I'll tell you a few stories about various projects as we go along. This is the Archer County Courthouse in Archer City. It's a Romanesque Revival courthouse, which interestingly, Romanesque Revival and Classical Revival, I think, are the two most common styles of historic courthouse that we have in the state of Texas. So this is the before. You can see the storefront, aluminum entry doors, and lots of boarded up windows. And this is after. This is the Atascosa County Courthouse. It's one of our only mission style courthouses, and it's in Pleasanton, and it was constructed in 1912, and that's after. This is the B County Courthouse in Beeville, and it's a Beaux-Arts style courthouse. And I didn't get a great photo of it, but the dome on top of the B County Courthouse looks like a beehive. So if you get a chance to look at it, it's pretty fun. Here's the Bexar County Courthouse in San Antonio. It was originally constructed in 1891. This is a courtroom that was restored through the grant program. Bexar County, because it's such an enormous building, they've really done lots of small projects. But this courtroom restoration, I think, is one of the most kind of outstanding projects that we've funded on that building. This is one of our more outstanding transformations, I think. This is the Bosque County Courthouse in Meridian. You can just see that it's in dire condition. You're just not going to believe what it looked like after it was done. So we had to remove white paint, reconstruct the tower, and the roof line on this building, as well as lots of interior reconstruction and masonry restoration. Here's the Brooks County Courthouse, built in 1914, a Classical Revival. You can see all the windows here are kind of modern aluminum windows, and the I was going to say storefront door, but that's actually a wood door. And then this is following the restoration. This is the Cameron County Courthouse in Brownsville. And its courtroom is one of the more outstanding in the state. This is the Cass County Courthouse in Linden, Texas. It's the oldest continuously functioning courthouse in the state. It was built, it's also our only antebellum courthouse that's still functioning as a courthouse. Now it was dramatically altered in the early 1930s, but inside the building you can still see fireplaces from the 1861 courthouse and windows and brick. So the 1861 building is completely encased in this building. And this yellow and orange stucco has an integral color in it. So this building is not painted. The stucco actually has the color in it. And inside, they had some outstanding vault doors, which is one of the, I have to tell you, whenever you're driving around Texas on a weekday and you come across a courthouse, make sure you go inside. First of all, they've got great clean restrooms. But also the interior finishes in some of these buildings are even more outstanding than their exteriors. And so this vault door is, as you can see, extremely ornamental, has lots of hand painting. All of that is the ornamental painting was painted by hand. When we began this project, it was painted over black, which is extremely common. I don't know why counties paint over these beautiful doors, but we find them all the time with 10 layers of, latex paint. And thankfully, our paint conservators are able to very carefully remove all the different layers and then do some infill painting in order to achieve this final appearance. This is the Colorado County Courthouse. It was originally built in 1891, but then following a tornado, they rebuilt the dome, which is what exists today, and that was in 1909. And so the building style was altered at that time, but we all found, just similar to Cass, that even though the building was altered in 1909, this style is a style on its own. So it created a complete building, and this is before, and this is after. And so you can see the copper dome is just absolutely stunning. And actually, I should have included a picture of it, but inside they have a Tiffany stained glass dome inside. Here's the Comal County Courthouse in New Braunfels. On the lower right, you can see this, what looks like a one-story space. This was quite common. The district courtrooms, which were typically a two-story height space, were filled in with a concrete floor in order to make more space. And so once they restored the building, they removed that floor and then opened up the courtroom to this two-story space. And there was all beautiful ornamental painting and stenciling. The wreaths that are running around the balcony face is all hand painted or hand stenciled. This is the Cook County Courthouse in Gainesville. It was built in 1911. Its architect designed also the Harris County Courthouse in Houston and the Johnson County Courthouse in Cleburne, and I'll be showing you those buildings as well. But this is the building before the restoration, and that's after. And the colors, one of the things that we really focus on these projects is we always have a paint analyst come in and do a full analysis of the building. They look for any ornamental painting or stenciling. They also look at all the vault doors, and they determine what the original colors outside and inside the building were. And we, unless we cannot figure out what the colors were, let's say we've lost all the plaster or there's just a lot of loss, and otherwise we always will restore the original palette of the building and make sure that we replicate any missing ornamental painting. This is the Dallas County Courthouse. It's nicknamed Old Red in Dallas. It's also a Romanesque Revival courthouse, and this is it before we began the restoration. Oops, sorry. And that's after. So we did also, we reconstructed the tower here, as well as some mansard roofs. And the stripes that you see on the roof are different colors of natural slate. And so that's what creates that pattern on the roof. This building, most of our courthouses that are restored through our program are still functioning courthouses. The Dallas County Courthouse serves as partly as a museum. They also have social events in the building. So it's one of the only projects that is no longer functioning as a courthouse. This is the Denton County Courthouse in Denton. It's a really unique building. This was designed by J. Riley Gordon, he was one of the most prolific courthouse architects in the state of Texas. But this building is so different from all of his others. I'll show you some of his others as we go through the presentation. But this one, even though it's Romanesque Revival, it also has some sort of Beaux-Arts details, and the roof and tower, the cupola roofs are very unusual. This is the DeWitt County Courthouse in Cuero. This is my family's hometown. Both my parents grew up in Cuero, and they were actually the Gobbler King and Queen, homecoming King and Queen together, and they've been together ever since. But this project, so it's very dear to my heart, but it's also just a really special story. Up in the right corner, you can see some really stunning pressed metal ceiling that's also hand painted with gilding and some, I think it's copper and gold gilding. And they discovered this after they'd already gone to bid, and the project was already underway, and it was to recreate all of this hand painting was going to add like a couple of $100,000 to the project. And so the county just said, well, we just cannot afford that. And so they decided to go ahead and advertise in the Cuero Record newspaper and kind of spread the word. And people, like dozens of locals showed up, and they had some sample tiles all painted, and they just gave people, paintbrushes, and everybody just, would show up on rotation and paint these ceiling tiles. And on the back of each one, they would then write a dedication. And my uncle painted a couple, well, actually both of my uncles did. And one of my uncles dedicated it to my aunt. And so it's just a really special example of how these communities come together to make these projects happen. I mean, because some of these projects can't, for a small rural town can be, even with our, funding, with our grant funding. And we give grants up to $6 million to the counties, but some of these projects can still be very difficult to complete without coming up with creative ways to either fundraise or get the community involved. Sometimes they have people coming in from the community to do selective demolition, to remove kind of all the non-historic fabric, just ways to help save money on the projects. This is the Dimmitt County Courthouse in Carrizo Springs. This is before, and it was built in 1884. And this is after the restoration. This is the Donley County Courthouse. This was one of the first projects to be completed in the courthouse grant program. This is in Clarendon, and this is before, and it was also missing a tower or a couple of turrets and some roof, a special roof line that really gives it a lot of character. And then this is the interior. Once those finishes I was telling you about, once the paint colors are brought back in and all the original finishes are restored, it makes such a difference, because when you look at that, really, the stairwell is still there, the floor is still there, but it just doesn't have the same, you just don't have the same experience when the colors aren't there. And so, we consider all of the interior finishes to be, a very important part of the restoration. This is the Edwards County Courthouse in Rock Springs. And this is before, this is after. This is the Ellis County Courthouse in Waxahachie. And this is kind of a fun, I've included these sandstone capitals here because there is a story that sort of has been passed down that people tell in the community, and we can't verify it. We don't know if it's really true. But the story goes that the mason had come from Italy, and he was working on the project and doing all the carving of the sandstone. And he met a local woman and fell in love. And so he started carving faces. And so the top two faces there are when he was in love with her, and then apparently she scorned him, and so then he started carving her face as a, like a hideous sort of witch. So if you ever are in Waxahachie, you should go and try to find the beautiful woman faces and then the more hideous witch-like faces. And then this is the interior before and after. Again, just stunning color palette. This is the Erath County Courthouse in Stephenville. This is before in the courtroom. You can just see how, again, like so often, just opening it up to a two-story space just makes so much difference. And then again, restoring all the original finishes. This is the Falls County Courthouse. It just recently rededicated in October. It is an art moderne courthouse. And so a lot of people, when they see these buildings from the outside, they think, oh, it's just a box. It's not very interesting. I happen to really love these art moderne buildings. And I really recommend the next time you see a building that you think, oh, it's just a box, go and look more closely, because in this one, I wanted to show you all some details, because I just think some of the details in art moderne buildings are so beautiful. Like you can see that the limestone, they used a combination of smooth cream limestone and then the shell limestone to contrast one another. And then there's some beautiful carved limestone up at the top of the building. It's very simple, but it's still, I saw it up on the scaffolding, and I almost burst into tears. It was just so beautiful. And then these light fixtures, we were so fortunate to have many of the original light fixtures. And these are stainless steel and different types of glass, some etched glass and some clear glass. And then you can see the terrazzo zigzag floor. And then in the courtroom, it's a little difficult to see, but there's a really beautiful resilient flooring in there that's red and black. And then in this building, there was also a really unique finish called cerusing, which is similar to pickling, if you know pickling, where people would take white paint and rub it in the grain and then wipe it off. And this cerusing is, they use green paint to do that. So they wipe down all the wood in the building, except actually in this courtroom here, this is all rosewood. But in the rest of the building, they wiped it down with green paint and then wiped it off. I would have shown you a picture, but honestly, it's very difficult to see in pictures. You're just gonna have to go to Marlin and go inside and look around for the cerus wood. This building, this is the only project I'm showing you that is not yet completed. This is the Fannin County Courthouse, and I wanted to show this because there have been a few buildings like the Bosque County Courthouse I showed you earlier in Meridian, but the Fannin County Courthouse is just such a drastic transformation. This building was a Second Empire building built in 1889, and then in the 1960s, they essentially took off the whole roof and tower and then covered the whole building in a paneling, stone paneling that they then used black mastic to glue it to the original limestone. And so you can actually, those vertical fenestration, the windows, you can still sort of see the original 1889 courthouse. So they just received a grant in round 10, and they've been working toward restoring their building. And back in August, they just raised their tower. But this is the same building. They just removed all that paneling. They did have to reconstruct some of the missing masonry features. And then of course they had to reconstruct the roof line and the tower. but this is one of the more dramatic reconstructions that we've undertaken in the program. Oh, and then I think I just want to mention too that this community, this is Bonham, Texas. This project is such a huge undertaking for them, but they passed a bond, and I think it was like 80% were in favor of doing this project, even though it meant a tax increase. And they've raised tons of money locally to help the county pay for the match. And they also have a Facebook page where they're actively showing daily the progress of this building, which is so fun to just check in and see. Like, they had a video of the whole tower. That tower was raised in 3 different parts, and they just showed the whole tower erection, and you could hear like horns honking and people cheering. But this is just another example of a community coming together and deciding that this is important to them. They want the centerpiece of their historic downtown to be the original 1889 building rather than the 1960s. And this is the Fayette County Courthouse. This is one of my favorite courthouses, just because it's very unique. I'll show you what it is. I don't know why it is that this one feature is so interesting to me, but up in the top, you can see that it has an interior courtyard. So this is the only courthouse in the state of Texas that has a courtyard, and it used to be open, to the sky. Now it has a glass pyramidal roof over it, but you still have the feeling of this interior courtyard with plants and, of course, pre-air conditioning. This was a wonderful way to just suck all the hot air out of the building, and it would just take it out of the center courtyard. This is the Franklin County Courthouse in Mount Vernon. That's before and after. This community is just another, they've really come together. I think they were our first community to join a program that we started, the Courthouse Square Initiative. They're a Main Street town, and what we see is so often is, Mount Vernon, when I first started working on this project, it was a sleepy little town. There wasn't a whole lot going on the square. By the time this project was finished, the courthouse restoration combined with Main Street and other THC programs just really sparks revitalization. And suddenly there were like cafes and coffee shops and music venues, and they have like a big wine festival now every fall. And so it's just a really, it's really incredible to see the transformation, not just of the courthouse, but of the whole historic downtown while these projects are going on, because it really does spark a whole revitalization of the downtown. This is the Goliad County Courthouse, another one that had lost its roof line and tower. And this is after. It's a very beautiful building. The courtroom is really interesting. It's one of the only courtrooms that's of this era that doesn't have a balcony. But I don't know if you can see the floor. It looks like red and gray, some sort of tile. Those are cement tiles, and the red ones are stained cement, and then they're just laid in a checkerboard pattern on an angle. This is the Gray County Courthouse in Pampa, and that's the courtroom before with that lowered ceiling and after. This is the the Grimes County Courthouse in Anderson. It's one of our only Italianate buildings, and you can see just how different it is from the other courthouses. This exterior stair is really special. It's the only courthouse that has this monumental wood exterior stair. And that's its courtroom after. This is the Hamilton County Courthouse in Hamilton, and it was built in 1887, and then it was altered pretty dramatically in 1931. And so we restored it to 1931, and this is before, and this is after. And this is one of the largest courtrooms I've ever seen in any courthouse. But you can see this floor is really unique. It was a rubber floor that was sort of a light blue and forest green checkerboard pattern. This is the Hardeman County Courthouse in Quanah. And you can see in this before picture the storefront windows, the aluminum entry doors, and the window units. And it's just in really terrible condition. But one of the things that's wonderful about this building is it had 28 different pressed metal ceiling patterns. And so you can see some of them here, but in each floor and each room that you would go in, there were different patterns. And many of them had to, in order to replicate missing pieces, they had to create new dies and to recreate all of the missing pressed metal ceiling tiles. This is the Harris County Courthouse in Houston. So I show this bottom right photo, not only just to show you just in general kind of the kinds of conditions we see, but I think what's so shocking about this is, this is Harris County. This is probably certainly in the top 3 wealthiest counties in the state. You can see the exterior of the building is in just terrible condition. And one of the photos I showed you at the beginning where I was talking about the severe disrepair that the buildings were in, and it showed like a plant growing out of some plaster, inside of a courtroom. That was the Harris County Courthouse. So this is before they restored the building, and that's after. And this is that courtroom now. This is the Harrison County Courthouse in Marshall. This was one of the first projects that I worked on from the very beginning to the end. This building had been abandoned for 25 years. When I first started on this, Marshall was just starting to revive. The building had undergone a somewhat, I think it was like a roof restoration, and the community was very committed to eventually restoring this building. And as word got out that this building was going to be restored, people started buying up businesses around the square that had literally just been abandoned for decades. And so when I first started going to Marshall, I mean, it was, abandoned businesses all around the square. It is now one of the just most interesting historic downtowns. They've got all kinds of restaurants, and they restored their really beautiful train station that's just down the road from the courthouse, which really also kind of helped spark that revitalization. But there's not an empty business in their downtown anymore. I mean, it's such a thriving community. And I wanted to just show you the inside of this building because it's a great example of what I was talking about. How I mean, the exterior is very. I wanted to show you. This is J. Riley Gordon as well. He also had designed that Denton County Courthouse and the Ellis County Courthouse as well in Waxahachie, the one with the carved faces of the woman. This is also sort of an unusual style for him. He almost always designed the Romanesque revival, the real heavy arches and very rusticated stone. And so this building is much lighter and airier than his other buildings. But the interior is at least as beautiful as the exterior. And this is before, and so it just looks dreadful after being abandoned for 25 years. But this is after. And so each floor had what's called encaustic tile, geometric tiles. You can see the beautiful cast iron railing. You can sort of see there are some brackets that go around each floor of this atrium that are painted with kind of oxblood red and gold leaf. And then you can see these newel posts are painted with gold leaf and kind of a forest green paint. And then at the base of the stair, I hope you can see the floor are glass tiles. So it helps let light into the basement below. And that's very unusual. I haven't seen that in any other courthouse. But in the courtroom, again, just the finishes are just incredible. This is just a column capital on one of the pilasters in the balcony of the district courtroom. And then you can see the face of the balcony. We had to look at photographs and lots of J. Riley Gordon balcony designs in order to, all of this plaster was recreated on this balcony face. And it just took so much research to try to figure out what exactly it looked like. So every now and then, we are missing some features and we have to dig through old photographs and commissioner court minutes and just try to figure out what was going on. Try to, read the building, look, can we see some ghosting there on the wall that helps us know where a balcony might have been? Or it's a lot of fun doing that during the planning stages. This is the Hood County Courthouse in Granbury. It is, I think, just an outstanding courtroom. I don't know if you can see the stenciling that runs along the top, all the way around the band at the top of the courtroom walls. But if you look carefully, it matches the railing that's in the cast iron railing in the stairwell. But all of that is hand stenciled. And all of the walls look like they're kind of like masonry, but that's all just hand painted. So, and they also had wood shutters, which is really unique in this courtroom. And these are some of the vault doors and a safe that we found in the building. I think there were 8 of these vault doors, and we had a paint conservator that was extremely experienced, and they had tested all the doors, and they were in the middle of the door. There's always a sort of a pastoral scene in this style of vault door at this era in the late 1800s. And so they were removing and so again, these were all painted black. Every single one of these were just painted completely black. You couldn't see any of this ornamental painting. And they were removing all of the paint, all of the non-original paint. And on one of the doors, they said, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what happened. The pastoral scene just disappeared. While we were removing the paint, it just came off with the other paint." And it turned out that one door, they had paid more money for all the other doors and had them hand painted, but that one door had like a gel print. So it was kind of like a print rather than an original painting. And so it came off. And so we don't even know, we still to this day don't know what that scene was. So we just they recreated it from, one of the other scenes. But this is the Hopkins County Courthouse in Sulphur Springs. This is before, this is another one where they had a very, this one just had a lowered ceiling rather than a truly divided courtroom, but this is after. This is also a J. Riley Gordon. this building looks very, very similar to the Ellis County Courthouse in Waxahachie, as well as the Wise County Courthouse in Decatur. This is very quintessential J. Riley Gordon, and this is that Romanesque, very heavy rusticated stone with big arches.
I know. Hey, and I don't want to put you out, and I don't even blame you for not doing this after.
Oh, there we go. This is the Hudspeth County Courthouse in Sierra Blanca. This is our only adobe courthouse in the state of Texas. And this is before they started working on the project. And so it required a lot of specialization to work on the building because adobe is a very unique material. And so this is after. And I think there is, I want to say there's some sort of like a bowling alley in the building or something like that. It's something very unique. This is the Jeff Davis County Courthouse in Fort Davis. And this is before, the courtroom before and the exterior. Really beautiful West Texas town. If you haven't been to Fort Davis, it's just a great place to visit. This is the Johnson County Courthouse. Again, this is the same architect that designed the Harris County Courthouse and the Cook County Courthouse in Gainesville that I showed you earlier. And this is one of the people that worked in the architecture firm here had worked with Louis Sullivan, who was the who Frank Lloyd Wright studied under. And so you can sort of see in this stained glass, it's got a lot of hints of Louis Sullivan design and similar to sort of some Frank Lloyd Wright design. This is the Karnes County Courthouse in Karnes City, and this is the before. This is also a very dramatic transformation. It's after. But yeah, I can't remember when they built this addition, but yeah, it's just, they removed the roof and the tower, and then they added this big long addition and stucco to cover up all the brick. This is the Kendall County Courthouse in Bernie, before and after. This is the LaSalle County Courthouse, another Art Moderne building. It also, I think, has some Art Deco detailing as well. But this eagle, you can see the paint conservators found a little bit of gold leaf on the eagle, and so they gilded all of the eagles on the exterior of the building. Stunning. This is the Lamar County Courthouse in Paris. This building is interesting because it was the original I think it was an 1870s building, burned in the fire in 1913 in Paris, but they reused all of the granite because it had been built of granite, and so the granite was all in perfect condition following the fire, and so they just reconfigured using all the same stone pieces. So I should have shown y'all the original building because you can see the arches and it was built on the old foundation of the building that burned in the Paris fire. But that's before, and this is after. And all the windows had to be reconstructed, and they were really, really unique, kind of a butterfly mechanism so these windows fold and go out. They're just incredible. This is the Lampasas County Courthouse and the Lee County Courthouse in Giddings. Sadly, this courthouse, following its restoration, has had some structural issues that we're still working. The county and the THC together are working to resolve. They are getting ready to undergo a major foundation repair with assistance through an emergency grant from us. This is the Leon County Courthouse. They had a very nice little safe in their building. This is the Lipscomb County Courthouse. It just rededicated in September. And I only have after photos of it, but you can see this beautiful geometric tile floor, kind of a mosaic tile in the bottom left corner. This is the Llano County Courthouse. This is the Marion County Courthouse. It just rededicated in May of this year. And it also had stenciling throughout the building. You can see, I put a little detail here of the stenciling that's up at the top that runs around all around the courtroom. And it is the sister courthouse to Roberts County. So when we get to Roberts County, make sure you take a look and you'll see that they're very similar. This is the Maverick County Courthouse in Eagle Pass. Stunning courtroom, beautiful, beautiful ornamental painting in this courtroom. It's really outstanding. Here's the McCullough County Courthouse in Brady, before and after. The Menard County Courthouse in Menard. This is another Art Moderne building. But you can see like these, I don't know if you can see the light fixtures in the courtroom. You know, even though, again, it's a very simple building, the details, once you start looking closely, you'll find some really beautiful little details. This is the Milam County Courthouse in Cameron, Texas. And during the project, they discovered these pocket doors. And this is one of them, so that it could close off the courtroom and divide it in half if they wanted to, just to make a more flexible space. Here's the Mills County Courthouse in Goathwaite. And this restroom, this is the men's restroom. And you can see all the kind of painting on the walls. And it was actually old advertisements. And so the paint conservator removed layers of paint to reveal all of the advertisements, you know, that were all from, you know, one period. And so you can see that, I think they did. But so anyway, in the restroom, they had all these advertisements painted on the walls. So as people were going to the restroom, they could see different ads. This is the Navarro County Courthouse in Corsicana. This is a Beaux-Arts building. On the bottom right, you can see what look to be marble columns. But these are actually scagliola, which is an Italian plaster. It's different. They take different colors of plaster and they layer it, and then they sand it down, and it creates what looks exactly like real marble. And as a matter of fact, while we were working on the project, I got a call from a local engineer, and he said, I'm extremely concerned. They're not doing an engineering study to study whether or not the building is truly capable of supporting these columns. And I've looked at it, and just from looking, there's just no way the structure could be supporting these marble columns. And I said, well, guess what? They're actually hollow, just completely hollow, and just, you know, lath and a thin layer of plaster on the outside. And he just could not believe that they were not real marble. But all of those were restored. It took painstaking time. I mean, I literally was watching the conservators just hand buffing and using hair dryers to dry different parts of them. The proscenium that's at the front of the courtroom, all of that ornamental plaster, those aren't ornamental plaster panels. When they altered the building in the 60s, they took all of those panels down and reconfigured them in this very strange pattern on the ceiling. And so those were all dismantled and then reinstalled in their original 1905 configuration. Here's the Newton County Courthouse. I mentioned it earlier as one of the buildings that burned. This building burned right after, oh gosh, it's getting to be really late, isn't it? Oh my gosh. Okay. This building burned right after they'd completed their master plan. And so we had all of the photographs and details that we needed to reconstruct the building, and it was reconstructed with a grant. I'm just gonna have to go really fast. This is the Parker County Courthouse. Just to show you, this is Dotson, the same architect that designed the Hood County Courthouse, and you can see that same masonry pattern painted on the walls. This is the Presidio County Courthouse in Marfa. The Rains County Courthouse in Emory, before and after. The Red River County Courthouse, I'll just briefly mention, during the project, we discovered, this is the courtroom before and after. During the project, we discovered this painting over the bench. It says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness." And when it was discovered, they then realized that the bench had been moved. And so we moved the bench back, and it changed the whole restoration period of the project because this ornamental painting was so significant, and it was original to the building. And we were initially restoring it to a later period. This is the Roberts County Courthouse. This is the one that's the sister of Marion. And there's some beautiful geometric tile. The San Augustine County Courthouse. Some really beautiful copper entry doors on this building. This is the San Saba County Courthouse that rededicated last year, right before COVID. This is our very first project that was completed in the program, the Shackelford County Courthouse in Albany. The Sutton County Courthouse, before and after. The Trinity County Courthouse. This is, again, one of our more incredible transformations. This building was covered in stucco. There was also a lot of division on the court as to whether they really wanted to go forward with this project because it was going to be such a major undertaking. But they did decide 3-2 to go ahead and go forward. And this is the building after. And this is such an incredible story because this has transformed this community. I mean, again, it was one of these, all of the rents on the square and the tripled in value, and they get busloads of tourists coming through all the time. I mean, the courthouse restoration really has transformed this community. And here's the Williamson County Courthouse in Georgetown, before and after. And you can't really, when you first look at it, you don't see the major transformation, but if you look up at the top, before it was missing this balustrade, and there were these pediments with all of this terracotta, and that was all reconstructed. And here's a close-up of the copper dome and some of the interior. So I just wanted to quickly say that, besides preserving the crown jewels of communities across the state of Texas, these projects also result in safer, more usable buildings, more energy efficient buildings, because we're using new mechanical systems and electrical and plumbing, and we're weather stripping at all the windows. The buildings are more functional. We install modern audio visual equipment and communication systems and security. We improve record storage. And then it also just decreases the amount of time and money that it costs to maintain these buildings. And I just wanted to show, that Denton County, that they found, again, it was just another example of a major revitalization of that downtown following the restoration of their courthouse. And these are some of the comments that were left in guest books across the state at different courthouses. And I wanted to mention that the DeWitt County Courthouse, they keep a guest book all the time, and they literally have people filling it in from Japan and Germany, and I mean, just all over the world. They get visitors to Cuero, Texas, coming to visit their courthouse. So, we're really thrilled at how the program has helped preserve the courthouses of Texas, but also just revitalizing communities across the state. So thank you for your patience. And I don't know what the red marks are on my screen, but I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that any of you have.
Thank you so much, Susan. This is a lot, as you said, so much to take in. There were a few questions in our chat box that I'm going to pull up. Let's see. Monica asked if Marshall was a Main Street city. I believe it was. I did say yes. So
Marshall has been on and off a Main Street city. I honestly don't know their current status, but I know that they go kind of in and out of being a Main Street city.
Got it. Let's see. Patty asks where she can get the full list of the 277 historic courthouses, and I shared in the chat box that not all of them are historic, as you mentioned early in your presentation, but what is the best way to get a list of the historic courthouses across Texas?
Well, I have a spreadsheet. I mean, it's not very pretty, but there really are 277 historic courthouses. There are 11 county courthouses in the state that are not historic, but because some counties have 2 or 3 historic courthouses, we really do have 277. But yes, I can get you a list of that, and I have a list that includes those that have been demolished, that are privately owned and things like that.
That would be fantastic.
I'd be happy to share that if you email me.
Well, and we can send the list out when we send the email, if that is okay with you. Let's see. Robert Clayman, who joins us all the way from Massachusetts, asks, are the buildings repurposed once restored? So if you can answer that.
So we are really very focused on preserving as many of these courthouses as courthouses. So one of the questions that we ask on our grant applications is, what do you plan to do with the building? And those counties that are planning to continue using their building as a courthouse get an additional, I believe it's 20 points for future use as a courthouse. And those that are not going to use it as a courthouse, lose those points. So we really try to focus our money on buildings that are going to be used as courthouses as much as possible.
Got it. He also asks if there's a contact for the Dallas County Courthouse, for the museum that is in there. And he mentions that many of these courthouses look very similar to Massachusetts courthouses built in the 1800s.
So I cannot think of the museum director's name off the top of my head, but I can easily get that name to Anjali.
And we'll share it with you, Robert. Let's see. I'm just scrolling down quickly. You did talk about the Hill County Courthouse, right?
Yes. So the Hill County Courthouse, I very briefly just showed that, it burned on New Year's Day, 1993. But then they did raise the money. It took them several years to raise the money to then reconstruct that building. But unlike Newton, they did not have a master plan and they did not have everything documented. So they had to do some, when they were reconstructing the interior finishes, they really didn't know exactly what all the trim looked like or which is hard to believe. But when you think about it, you just, unless you're photographing every part of a building, there are going to be parts where you're going to have to just make an educated guess.
Robert also asks if the interiors are restored and furnished to historic restoration standards.
So the courtroom furnishings, the built-in furnishings, like the judge's bench, the witness stand, the jury box, all of the audience seating, any kind of special shelving that might be in the county clerk's office. So any furnishings that are part of the building. They don't necessarily have to be built in, but definitely part of the building. We do restore all of that. As far as office furniture or furniture that's more easily moved in and out, those, it just depends. Some counties will just use some of the office furniture that they already had, and others will buy period furniture or replica furniture. But we only pay to restore those furnishings that are more a part of the courtroom.
Okay. Edie asks about Tarrant County Courthouse. Has that been part of the program?
Tarrant County, no, they have not been a participant in the program. We would love to have them. I have, reviewed several projects on that building. They did do a major roof rehabilitation. I think it was about 15 years ago. And they did remove an addition from their west wing, but they paid for that all on their own. And they, oh, you know what? I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. They have participated and they did apply for a very minor project, but they have not received a grant from the THC. I apologize for getting that wrong.
Let's see. Mary Riedel is complimenting you on the presentation. Daniel is asking, what's the story behind those advertisements in the bathroom?
Yes, isn't that interesting? I guess they had a captive audience that they wanted to take advantage of. So someone had this brilliant idea to paint, similar to what you would see on businesses, on buildings, brick buildings in downtowns on the side, a Coke ad or something, but instead it was in the bathroom.
Jim Kunkel, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. He's asking, when you start, how do you find all of the architect's drawings and construction prints, and how do you deal with those that you can't find?
Great question. So during the planning process, the county will hire an architect, a private architect, and that architect will work with us, our staff, and we will look at all kinds of things. They'll sometimes put ads in the newspaper asking if anyone has old photographs. They'll ask newspapers if they have any old photographs. We read through commissioner court minutes for anything that might discuss the building or its finishes or materials that were used. A lot of times too, we're just reading the building itself. So if like, for example, the Fannin County Courthouse, which is the one that was encased in that 1960s cladding, that building is missing a lot of details. And so they really had to dig around to find, like, maybe they go into the attic and they might find like, an original window over in a corner on the floor that tells them, or a piece of trim. Yeah. And now they suddenly know what the architectural trim inside the building looks like. We'll also look at all of the walls to look for ghosting. So if you have a rail, like let's say a balcony rail hitting the plaster wall, where it hits that wall, if the railing is now gone, where it was hitting the wall, it leaves a ghost of the profile. And so that can help us, locate where the balcony was originally, give us some idea of what it looked like. But it really is just it's a combination of a lot of sources. The Alexander Archives at the University of Texas has a lot of original drawings by various architects. So we are able to often find the original drawings for the courthouses, but I would say probably 50% of them that we do not ever find. And so a lot of it really is just doing a lot of research and just reading the building very carefully, looking for any clues as to what was originally the original configuration and design and materials.
Thank you. Mary asks, what Texas Hill Country courthouses are your favorite?
Ooh. Well, I do love the Llano County Courthouse. That's a tough one. And it's one of those questions that gets me into trouble. But, I really love all the courthouses. I find something in each one that I love so much that I do have a fondness for the Llano County Courthouse.
Great, thank you. Mike, you asked if there's somewhere online where you can review some of the photos that Susan has shared, and we're going to send out the link to the Facebook Live so you can run through it at your own pace and review the photographs. Let's see. Mary is saying Mason County Courthouse was burned down by an arsonist recently. It is being restored. Do you have an update on that?
Yeah, sure. So Mason County did receive a grant in round 11 to begin a full restoration. And then sadly in February, the arsonist destroyed most of that building. I mean, apart from the masonry, that they've done a full structural analysis. All of the masonry walls can be saved, and they are now working on designing the reconstruction of the roof. The first thing that they're going to do is reconstruct the roof. The county also received an additional $6 million from the 2021 legislature to help them with the cost of reconstruction. We're anticipating that project can be completed in about 4 years. But they have an architect, they already had an architect on board, which really helped. They also already had a full set of restoration drawings that are obviously needing to be edited substantially following the fire. But despite losing a lot, they did save, there were 12 fireplaces, I think, and they have these beautiful cast iron. Each one had a beautiful ornamental cast iron cover, and several of those were saved. Many windows were saved. So thankfully, it wasn't catastrophic. I mean, there are some things that were saved. And again, we had a full set of drawings, so we know exactly what every single detail of that building looked like. So that's going to make reconstruction much, much easier.
Thank you. Barbara asks, how many courthouses have the balconies that were constructed, I guess, for the African-American population in those counties?
Yeah, so I would say about 75% of the courthouses, maybe even 80%, had balconies. Some of the most of the 1800s courthouses had balconies, and then the early 1900s as well. And then as you get a little bit later into the 40s and 30s, then it's less likely that there are balconies. The B County Courthouse, their balcony, when they were working on their project, they were really concerned that their balcony was missing. It had been removed, and they were really concerned about reconstructing it because of how it had been used. But we've had lots of different historians guiding us on how to interpret these kinds of things. And most of the balconies held, more than just African-American visitors, but there were also, children. Sometimes women were only allowed in the balcony. But we do require if a balcony is missing, we do require the reconstruction, just because we want the courtroom to look as it did originally. Great.
Mike asks, is there a website or a place that tracks and documents the economic impact of the restored courthouses?
We do not have a website. We have Rutgers University helps us. They've created some formulas for us so that every year we go through and determine what the economic impact is of the program. And it's pretty fascinating. I mean, you can find those numbers in our biannual publication, the Courthouse Cornerstones. We always publicize that information. I believe it's somewhere on the website as well. But we don't have something that's, just regularly tracking it. So we basically enter numbers into an equation every year to determine the economic impact of the program as best we can.
Great, thank you. Bob asks, where is the Lavaca County Courthouse?
Ooh, I think I omitted the Lavaca County Courthouse. Oh gosh. Oh, I feel terrible. That is a stunning J. Riley Gordon courthouse with several different masonry, types of masonry, Muldoon, like all these beautifully colored limestones. I don't know how that happened. I am so sorry for anyone from Lavaca County wondering where their courthouse is. Yeah, I don't know how I omitted it. It's the only one I'm sure that I omitted. And it's a stunning one. Another J. Riley Gordon.
Maybe if you can send Katie and I some pictures, we'll attach that to our email.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
And then Kimmy is asking, I heard that the mason for the Waxahachie courthouse also carved another body part in addition to the face of the woman who rejected him. Is that true? It was mentioned in the Mishner novel.
Oh, I am not aware of that, but I'm going to look into that now.
Yeah, me too. And then Mary is asking, what is the oldest Texas courthouse still standing?
Ooh, I would have to, do y'all mind waiting a second while I try to look this up real quick? I don't know if you have time. Or you know what, what if I send it to y'all?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
That'd be great. Any other questions? We're at the bottom of our list. Any other questions anyone would like to ask? If not, we've taken 20 more minutes of your time than we had planned. Katie, did you have something?
No, this has been so good, Susan. I've learned a lot. I'm sure everybody else has too.
Yeah.
Anjali?
Yes, Monica.
Yes, and I'd like to just make a comment and thank Susan so much for this enlightening presentation. I think most Texans don't realize the Texas Historical Commission has this program and is in charge of doing these fantastic projects, these restorations. And I just wanted to mention, I'm sure you know, and well, I know you know, but probably most other people don't know, that coming up within the next, I'd say 6 months, there'll be a travel app that you can have on your phone. And it will not only have, it will have all of the assets of the Texas Historical Commission shown on there, including the historical markers that you drive by, the state historic sites, and the historic courthouses. And so you'll be able to, even if you don't have the time to stop and go into these beautiful courthouses, and they are absolutely amazing. I drive through a lot of them myself. I go some back ways to Austin and up beyond that. And I see these courthouses and it's like, I don't have time to stop, but I really would like to get information about them because they're magnificent. They are just absolutely magnificent. And I thank the staff from Architecture Committee, Division. I happen to serve on Architecture Committee as one of the commissioners. And it is actually my favorite project of anything that I have to do with THC, because it's fabulous. It's like magic what they do, and all of the detail that they go through, to make it correct and to make it original. And I just applaud you all, Susan. Y'all are just absolutely fantastic, and I love that.
Thank you, Monica.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Monica. And Bob Morgenroth mentioned he's one of the county historic commissioners on that project in Lavaca County. So we will definitely send pictures out with our email, Bob, about that particular courthouse. Kathleen is asking, there are books about courthouses. Is there a recent one that you can recommend?
Well, there's a really interesting one that was written probably about 5 years ago by Brantley Hightower. That has a very different perspective. I mean, he sort of looks at the courthouses from a sociological perspective, as well as architectural. He's an architect, but I highly recommend that as giving a very interesting perspective. Of course, there is the Dial, I can't think of his first name, John Dial, courthouse book that just shows all of the courthouses, a picture, and gives a brief description, an architectural description of the buildings, which is all of our go-to. I mean, all of the courthouse teams, we all have a copy of that book, and we use it as a constant reference. But the Brantley Hightower book is the newest courthouse book that I'm aware of that also is just a very interesting perspective.
Awesome. Esther, thank you for joining us as well. Esther is saying she's missing the 1886 Hidalgo County Courthouse.
Yes, so I only included our courthouses that underwent full restorations that we funded as full restorations. So the Hidalgo County Courthouse was technically an emergency grant. And so that's why I did not include the Hidalgo County Courthouse. But that was also an outstanding project that the county primarily funded on their own. We gave them a $450,000 emergency grant, and then they covered the remaining cost of that project.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're not going to keep you any longer. We will send out an email with the Facebook Live link with some pictures of the Lavaca County Courthouse and the titles and authors of the two books that Susan mentioned. We hope that you will join us for our next virtual event, which will be in February. We'll be sending out an email about that soon. Thank you, Susan, for your time. We really, really, truly appreciate it. Always learn something new.
I really love sharing my passion for Texas courthouses.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good holiday.